What is going on, y'all? Welcome back to 8 Cubes. I'm KM Best. He's Lamby series, and we are here to take you through what might be the most eventful upcoming month in Marvel Snap history. We have a new mechanic coming out, a season pass card that features that new mechanic, Activate and Symbiote Spider-Man, respectively. And it might not even be the best card coming out in the first week of the season. So let's jump into Symbiote Spider-Man, a 4/6 card with an Activate ability that fuses the lowest power card at this location with Symbiote Spider-Man and then repeats the on reveal of that card. Now, this is in essence a bigger, more or less targeted, I should say, absorbing man type card. Repeating on reveal is a very reasonable thing to do. But before we jump into what the card actually does, let's talk a little bit about Activate in the context of what does it actually do. Here's what I know about Activate so far. Activate is an ability you turn on, rather than it being on like an ongoing or triggered by play. It is also an ability that you trigger by holding down on the card. So you hold down on the card, Symbiote Spider-Man activates. You do this in the staging phase, when you are playing your cards for the turn. The order in which you activate stuff will maintain in the reveal phase, the same way old move works. And finally, you can only activate a card when it is face up on your board, meaning after it has already been played, revealed, and it is now the next turn. This means that turn 6, if you draw an activate card, you are not turning it on unless there is a limbo on the board. All of that said, Lamby, probably the longest I've made you wait to start an episode to talk. Tell me what you think about Symbiote Spider-Man.
Right, I'm gonna rewind this back to the part where you mentioned about absorbing man, because I feel like I
Yes.
agree. This is like a bit absorbing man-ish, a bit sort of like a grandmaster style card as well. Like it's an add-on to something that's already on the board. Except this one actually has like stats. It's a 4/6. So this card, honestly, I feel like there's like quite a few ways you can use this card. It just looks like a wombo combo card for sure. Like Nimrod, like Phoenix Force,
Mhm.
Galactus. I've seen people talk about Galactus on Twitter a lot about with this card as well. Of course, I feel like this is a very like TikTok clip card. Like when it goes off and then there's like 1 million power, or like you get the Galactus off the second time. It's very clip worthy. But I guess in terms of practicality, I would say a little bit dangerous because like you see here, right? It merges with the lowest cost card. So lowest cost card means what? Like in this meta where there's so much clock related stuff, Kate Bishop. Acid Arrow is like everywhere, right? So yeah, so it merges with the lowest cost card, which is a bit dangerous when it comes to like stuff like when it involves with like Kate Bishop, because Kate Bishop is so popular right now, right? Like when you send over an Acid Arrow, then it merges with an Acid Arrow by accident, and then you send over the Symbiote Spider-Man as well, and of course just Clock in general, like I was saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think this card has a lot of potential. Like I specifically mentioned Grandmaster because Grandmaster had potential, but it was not played because it was like not a good card. It was 2-0 at first, and even after the buff, it was like eh. So like I hope 4/6 at least see some play. Like you don't feel too bad playing the card even if it doesn't work out the way it's intended. But of course the main reason why you want to play this card is to activate it to do some wombo combo thing. Like other than what I mentioned earlier, KM, what else do you think that like could be done with this card?
Well, the really fascinating thing about this is, you know, they just nerfed Taskmaster, right?
Yeah.
And part of me, like, I assume a lot of that was about the move bounce stuff. I get that, like bouncing a dagger, bouncing a human torch, taskmastering it really sucks when Taskmaster costs 5. I get that. I'm into it, right? But here's the other thing that like got me thinking about Taskmaster is what other costs could you put Symbiote Spider-Man at? And I realized very quickly that you kind of can't make this any cheaper than 4, because if you
Yes.
make it cheaper than 4, like if you go 3
3.
cost Symbiote Spider-Man into Shuri, and then you activate
Yo.
Symbiote Spider-Man, you are 4xing. Like you can't
Mm-hmm.
do that. Like you simply cannot do that. So it has to be a 4 cost card. And then it's like, okay, what is the maximum stats you can give this that won't be completely awful? And it's like, okay, if we make this a 4/7 that merges into anything, suddenly what we're doing is 10 power multiple men. Suddenly what we're doing is 13 power Nimrods. Like, I honestly, when I look at this card, what I see is a card that got the maximum allowable stats. That's what I see.
Agreed.
This is a card that is as pushed as it possibly can be. And that, I think, is a really fascinating situation because when I look at this card, I don't know that it's actually good. Here are a couple combos that I want to try with Symbiote Spider-Man, though. Number one, Black Panther, Symbiote Spider-Man, Arnim Zola. If I understand
Mm-hmm.
this correctly, the way it should work is you play Symbiote Spider-Man, you play Black Panther, then on the final turn of the game, you activate Symbiote Spider-Man, play Arnim Zola in that lane.
28,
56.
56. Wait, I can't do the math.
Yeah, so you have the
Oh,
8,
you're right.
right?
It's
And then
56, right? Right.
yeah.
28 times 2, yeah.
Yeah.
56.
So it's 56 in 2 lanes, right? So like just baseline, that seems like the kind of thing that's like, yeah, easily disruptible. You get clogged, it doesn't work. But also, if you're playing against someone who has no interaction and you can just afford to run those cards anyway, that seems really, really strong to me. Where it's just like, oh, one of the things that's really been good about Wong decks recently is they have these draws that totally invalidate mid-range strategies. If those mid-range strategies aren't clogging them, they just lose. And
Mm-hmm.
that is a sort of combination of cards like that maybe if you can find a deck that already wants that stuff can go in whatever. Like I think maybe Mr. Negative comes to mind as the kind of deck that can play something like that and not really like have a huge cost to it. And so like even when you don't Mr. Negative, you still have your 4-5-6 I win the game some of the time kind of combo, right? There
Mm-hmm.
are also things like Galactus, where you go Symbiote Spider-Man on 4, Hobgoblin on 5, Galactus into activate Symbiote Spider-Man, 11 power Galactus. That's kind of interesting to me. As a second Shuri in Phoenix Force, so you can use it on your Nimrod. You can use it in combination with maybe a multiple man if you need to. There are interesting things that can happen. I mean, I guess you could also maybe even pull it off with a Phoenix Force, right? There's a lot that this card can do that I find fairly compelling. My real question is, does it end up as a good cards card, or is it all
Yes.
about synergy and combos? And I don't know the answer to that one yet.
Yeah, so right when you just said that, because I was thinking about this the whole time you were talking about the stuff, I was like, so is there a world that we can just play this card in the deck,
In
like the deck with
whatever.
cards,
Yeah.
the deck with
Yeah.
the whatever deck, right?
Yep.
Because if you think about it, right, like this is one of those cards that gives you the because my brain automatically goes towards like a juke kind of scenario whereby this thing gives you the option to click the button, but what if you never click the
Yeah, it's just
button?
the
So
4-6.
it's a vision-ish option kind of card as well. Like if you play in like a normal non-combo-ish deck as well, like you just never click the button, you never fuse, and then like not fusing means like an end effect doesn't reactivate. But then if you fuse, the end effect reactivates, that kind of thing. So like if you can play this in like a normal deck, you have that kind of options as well. It's actually quite an interesting card. I guess this is more about the activate mechanic than
Yeah.
Symbiote Spider itself.
I think specifically the good card thing that I am the most excited for with this card, there's like one specific interaction that I was like, whoa, that's insane, is
Mhm.
Sage. Double Sage.
Yeah.
Literally just a 4-6 that if you Sage that late, it happens twice. That seems super messed up to me. Like that's just
I
like
do
a
think that's hard
really
to do though, because merge with your lowest cost card. It's very unlikely that the Sage location, like Sage, is the smallest thing there,
it
right?
can be. It's
Yeah,
lowest
it can
cost, not
be.
lowest
Definitely.
lowest power, right? It's a 3 cost card. So like even
Mhm.
after it goes off once, it's like, okay, maybe that'll just happen again. And so like that's the kind of thing that's like if you're a cheap card with a big on reveal effect, that's the kind of
Mm.
thing that strikes me as interesting with this guy. Where it's like, I mean, like that's to say nothing of like I don't know, turn 4 this, turn 5 Wiccan merge. I doubt that'll ever happen, but it's like Kitty Pride decks are pretty good at keeping lanes clean when they want to be. Like you have Kitty Pride, you have Jeff, you have Nocturne. We didn't even talk about Jeff and Nocturne. That's just adding 6 power to Jeff and Nocturne. That's also pretty good.
It's like another Namora, yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know. I am willing to believe that Sage SSM is something to care about. The rest,
Hmm.
I'm not sure. The rest, it's like combos and stuff. But if I were to start trying to make this work in a good card shell, it would be with Sage. Let's move on to a much simpler card, Silver Sable, a 1 cost, 1 power card with an on reveal ability that steals 2 power from the top card of your opponent's deck. When I look at this card, I see a middle ground between Rocket Raccoon and something like Iceman or Korg, where it is negatively impacting your opponent's draws and consistency while also gaining power on its own. To me, this is instantly the second best card in every 1-drop bounce deck, the second or third, right? Hood, Nico, these are your locked in cards. That's sort of when I look at that, and that's what I see. The only issue I could possibly have with Silver Sable is that cards in the future, Madam Web and Aranya, might make move bounce the dominant form of bounce, and if so, there might not be room for a card like Silver Sable. But when I look at this card, I see it supercharging normal bounce. I'm not sure how relevant that will be, but it does seem like, to me, the exact kind of card you want to Falcon and Beast and get out there so you are able to play a 1/7 that triggered 3 times, taking away 6 power total from your opponent's cards.
Yeah, the Falcon mention I think was really important because I feel like, like I always think Beast is just generally the better bounce card, right? Because it makes things cost 0. It makes your one cost 0 and stuff like that. But like this card is like very worth falconing, because it like okay, so my question with this card is just like, so you steal 2 power from the top and then you add it to this card, right? So
Yeah.
that's technically like a +4, but it's only like a +4 if they actually play the card, right? I mean,
Yes.
very often they will play the card, right? So I'm assuming even if you bounce it like 3 times, then it's like 1/7 on this card and then -6 or 1/13. But that's like perfect world scenario whereby you bounced it like twice and also they play every single card that gets drawn, right? I mean, most likely they'll play at least 1 or 2 of it. So yeah, this card's probably gonna be huge, like huge in terms of stat line for a 1-cost card. Excited for this card in bounce for sure, because like, I feel like bounce hasn't had like a good stat stick 1-drop for a while, right? Like Nico's like a 2-box card. Forge got nerfed to 2 power, so it's not 1. And then what else do we have? I guess Rocket Raccoon
We've
is
been playing
is big,
Rocket.
right? But
Yeah.
this is like probably just bigger, like as long as they play 1 card that you like reduced in power. So yeah, I like this card a lot for bounce.
I think people are used to thinking that like in-deck power reduction doesn't matter because of Cassandra Nova, but I gotta tell you, -2 I feel like is gonna feel a lot worse than -1. Like people are gonna be like, oh my god, this is like actually unplayable when they get like their 3 -2 Mystique or whatever. Like you're just gonna
Yes.
feel like
Yes. I
losing
wanted to
2
say like the
power.
negative power is pretty insane when you
Yeah.
think of things like Iron Man, right?
Yeah, but like really it's like anything, right? Like if you've ever been Cassandra Nova on a Kamartage, you're like actually feeling it then in a way that you are not feeling it when you are just Cassandra Nova once. You can ignore one Cassandra Nova, but like once you start drawing those -2s, you're like, man, these cards actually really suck. And I think that that is like not to be like, pithy, but it is twice as many like negative power, right? Going from 1 to 2 is like a 100% increase in the amount of
Mm-hmm.
negative power you're applying. And so when I look at this card, I almost wonder if like the safe version of this card to release would have decoupled those things, i.e., she gains 2 and takes away 1. Like that's like the more balanceable version of this card. I feel like they released a fairly risky version of what this card could be by making it a steel trigger instead.
I think it's fine. Okay, personally, I think it's fine to be like +2, -2, because I feel like you only really feel the pain of the +2, -2 when it's like multiple times, right? I would say. I would personally think like if it happens multiple times, so there needs to be a bit of a build around this card as well. Like you wouldn't run this as a generic 1-drop. I don't believe so.
I
Like
don't think
if
so,
you want to
yeah.
run like a generic 1-drop in like a good card shell, you'd run like other things, right? You run like Nico or even just Kitty. So this one feels like you need a bit of a build around. So I think it's okay.
I want to talk a little bit about the activate mechanic because I think there are some things people aren't really grasping about it. The first is that I actually think, like, if you look at it compared to on reveal and ongoing, I would say if those mechanics are A's, this is a B mechanic where it's like just on a fundamental level, there is more design space with on reveal and ongoing no matter what because you cannot make a 6-drop activate card. And I think you'd be
Yep.
pretty hard pressed to make a 5-drop activate card. It would have to be you only play this on 5. And I realize like there are some cards where it's like you only play this on 5. When you look at like all the 5-drops people play right now, Ajax and Annihilus and cards of that nature, you can play those on 6 and it's actually fine. An activate 5-drop, if you miss that draw, is a card with no text. It just has numbers on it. And so I sort of wonder if it's even possible to make an activate 5-drop, how long we'll have to wait to see an activate 5-drop. I am fairly certain you can't make an activate 6-drop unless you want to like explicitly buff Arishem or Ramp, but I find it hard to believe that that would be worth their time to make. It would be such a niche card that I almost wonder if you can actually only make activate cards for like the first 4 energy costs 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's when you can do it, I think. And I don't know if you can make one for 5 or for 6. And I'm kind of interested in that kind of dynamic. It's why I think of this as a B mechanic rather than an A, because there is just
Mm.
some design space in this game that is closed off to it, which is weird because it plays or looks like it's like an ultimate ability, but you can't actually put it on anything really big where that ultimate ability would be super impactful, right? It has to be on like threes and fours and twos and ones rather than sixes and you press R and it goes crazy and something cool happens. And I think that is like a genuine weakness of the mechanic.
Okay, I honestly I agree with you as well, like 100%. Like the whole point of making like activate cards is so that it can pair, that you can play it early and then have like a decision to make in the final turn or second last turn or like in the mid game, right? Like if you make a 3 cost activate card, you can activate it on turn 4. So that's like a mid game decision and then like a late game decision for like the other activate cards that cost like 4. But like I wanna just I was just thinking because you mentioned like 6 cost activate cards are so hard to make, right? But
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know, I don't really know the law, but what is the most law accurate card that pairs with Magic ever? That could be the 6 cost
Oh,
activate card, right?
yeah, that's
Because you
good.
know, a lot of these Marvel cards they have law accurate effects to a certain extent. What is the most wait, I don't know, I want to know in the comments just for the fun of it. Like, what is the most law accurate card that relates to Magic? That could be Magic's like 6 cost activate, because then you can only play it in the Magic deck. I might Google this later anyway, but yeah, just want to know what that could be.
I do think a lot of things have remained the same metagame wise since the last time we did one of these. I do think that it's worth talking about the one major new development in the metagame, which is the deck of tens, the Scar deck,
Mm-hmm.
that I sort of view as a way of countering two things that are happening right now. The first is
Alive.
Shang-Chi is at an all time low. That deck is just
Yep.
Shang-Chi food. Even though the version I'm playing plays like Armor and Cosmo, it's still kind of Shang-Chi food. Like, this is a deck that wants to play a 4/10 on turn 4 and then a 4/10 on turn 5, and then it does the Armor Cosmo stuff mostly. And even then, it is still like kind of Shang-Chi food. But I checked Shang-Chi's stats since the patch. He's being played in only 22% of decks, and you might look at that and say that's a
Oh.
lot, but for
Used to
Shang-Chi,
be like
that's
some
not a
60
lot.
something
Yeah,
percent card,
like
right?
this is a card that's been up to like 50% of decks before. Yeah. And the
Mm.
second thing is that like the reason for the Shang-Chi downturn is there are so many Alioth decks, all the Wiccan decks are Alioth decks, all the Arishem decks are Alioth decks, even some of the Sandman decks are Alioth decks. Alioth actually has a slightly higher play rate than Shang-Chi right now, and just dropping stats is a really good way to beat Alioth. Nice 6/10, I have a 2/10. Good luck, right? And so you end up in a situation where this deck is built to beat that dynamic, and also by virtue of being a deck that can run Cosmo and Armor, you know what's happening right now. It's Infinite Conquest Week. The Destroy Bros are out in force.
Oh
You can just beat
yes.
them, right? They just got a new tool with Atuma. They're out here having fun. They're kind of everywhere. You can just run the cards that actually just beat them 100% of the time and call it an actual day.
Yeah, I just want to say firstly, KM mentioned the Destroy Bros, so I don't have to do it. Because normally when the it's Infinite Conquest, I will have a specific topic about talking about the Destroy Bros that appear out of
They
nowhere
are
and they always come
everywhere.
back.
It's
Shout out to the
incredible.
Destroy Bros. I like Destroy, but sometimes it's not your time. It's not your time this meta. But anyway, I just want to say also like I like this big boys deck though. Like it's just so simple to play and it's so powerful, right? It's just stats, and then you get to play discounted stats. That's also 10, of course. Like it's just really a lot of power, and like you said, counters the Alioth, which is a 6/10. You play 2/10s, 4/10s, you know. So that's like just a perfect counter to like Alioth itself, which is like you say in Wiccan decks, which is like everywhere as well. So yeah, no, nothing much to really add here, except I just want to say that I like this style of deck. It's just big numbers.
Moving on to the new season. And what I wanted to do with this topic is pick a deck that currently exists that you think will survive contact with a potential move bounce meta. What are you going to look into if people are playing a bunch of Silver Sable bounce, if people are playing a bunch of Nimrod Symbiote Spider-Man combos, if they're playing a bunch of like Black Panther SSM, and even going on into like week 2, week 3, where we see Madam Web come out, potential move bounce card. We see Aranya come out, potential move bounce card. What decks from right now do you think survive contact with what's coming in September?
I'll say for sure one deck that will not survive is the one we just talked about. The 10 deck will definitely not
Yeah.
survive because it's fair stats, right?
Yeah.
Like it like the one we're talking about, like the Symbiote Spider Black Panther thing is like 58, right? This is just 10, 10, 10. It's never gonna get there. Also, Silver Stable will
No,
make you
it's
a 8,
cool,
8,
dude. We
8.
can armor the lane. We got him.
Okay.
We can
No,
Cosmo the lane, dude.
like
We got him.
I mean, like, why not? Yeah, I guess, but like Silver Sable turns these into 8s as well, so you don't get to do the 10 synergy with
Mm.
Scar, right, as well. So I did that deck for sure won't survive. But what will survive though? I mean, the previous video I talked about Wiccan simplifying what is known to be a good hand. You know, you got a perfect curve into Wiccan. I think Wiccan survives simply because it just can get to run so many natural good cards, right? Like the stuff that fits the curve to make Wiccan good is like what Kate Bishop, aka good card, Kitty Pryde, aka good card, Angela good card, you know, that kind of thing. So like that will probably survive. And then of course that deck can just fit in tech, right? Like if a Wombo combo deck pops up, back goes in the Shang-Chi, like I don't know, like Super Skrulls can go. Yeah, I mean Super Skrulls are probably a bit of a stretch, but like I guess like some anti-ongoing thing could go into the deck as well because you can fit like tech in the deck, you know. So I feel like Wiccan stuff will survive simply because you get the Wiccan buff, like you get the mana, then you play your stats and then you play your counter card. So I think Wiccan decks will for sure survive. Arishem is interesting.
Mm-mm. I feel bad
Yeah,
about that guy.
I don't think I don't think Arishem's gonna survive. Like Arishem now is really struggling to beat like Bounce on points, right? Like Bounce has so much like points in reallocatable spots. Like you can reallocate your points in like whatever you want to do with Bounce. So I feel like when there's move bounce involved, even more movement, even more reallocation, Arishem's like mana cheat might fall a bit short. That's what I think. So yeah.
It's literally just like one tricking Eliath at this point. Again, in that
Yep.
matchup. Like that's
It's true
that's
though.
that's literally
Or maybe
it.
Sandman. Maybe Arishem
Yeah.
has to play Sandman things, right?
But like, wouldn't you rather just play the Sandman more
Sandman
reliably
Ultron, yeah,
in
it's
an
true.
actual Sandman deck? Like, I don't know. Like
Do you
it
think Zoo survives?
yeah, I think Zoo's actually really good. I mean, like, Zoo
Like
okay,
next meta?
Zoo is only good as long as it is competitive on points while being
Mm-hmm.
easy. It's possible
But is
move
it?
bounce is just way bigger. But right
Right.
now, Zoo is actually really good, I think.
Of course,
I
of
don't
course.
know exactly if it survives contact with the numbers being brought to bear by like a Silver Sable bounce deck or a move bounce deck. I think that is the kind of thing that we're all gonna have to like learn by doing. But I've thought
Mm.
Zoo would like fall behind on numbers before, and it just consistently hasn't. It's just like consistently been a really good numbers deck. It does numbers really well. So let's talk about how to beat Symbiote Spider-Man. And one of the things that occurs to me is I'm going to give you a couple examples of decks.
Mm-hmm.
Just throw me like what you do in the situation where you had to beat it. Symbiote Spider-Man Nimrod. What are we trying to do to beat that? Are we Shadow Kinging? Are we Cosmoing? Are we armoring? Are we just saying, you don't always do this, even though you have Shuri and Symbiote Spider-Man to do this? Are we trying to clog them up even though they're a destroy deck? What's our line here?
Okay, the first line is we are armor and cosmoing. That's the
Mhm.
first line. The second thing is quite interesting because we talk about like hoping they don't have it, right? But this brings me back to the point of like, you know, in the previous like metas whereby you just go Shuri, you can do nothing for like the first few turns, and then you just like they snap you, you can wait because the moment you draw the Shuri, the Nimrod, you can snap back and they can never beat you, right? So I feel like this style of like symbiote spider deck also has the ability to just wait it out, you know, like
Mhm.
stay for a snap, and then like if you do draw the things, you can snap back. So I feel like it's a bit difficult to say that you don't have the outs because the deck literally is meant to wait to draw the things, you know, and then they got so much snap value back at you. So beating this is probably, I mean, in the past it was very simple, right? You know, when I think of this kind of decks, the first thing I think about is like RIP Professor X. But like now now it's a bit, I mean, it's a bit different, I guess. It's a
Yeah.
little bit different. So yeah.
Like when I think of beating Symbiote Spider-Man, I think of hoping that everyone plays him in bad decks. Like that's basically what I think of. I think of like I hope you play him in
That's
something
beating it for
terrible.
24 hours. It's
Yeah.
not really counted.
I hope he's only in these combo decks because like there's like the more I think about it, the more it's like, okay, so yeah, he's Sage, right? But also, what if in your Sandman deck he's two Doctor Dooms, right?
Uh-huh.
What
Oh, that's
if
pretty nice. Yeah.
yeah, like what if you're like Sandman is actually pretty good at loading up only one location with like movers or whatever. That other location
Mm-hmm.
is Symbiote Spider-Man. They play Sandman on 6, Doom middle in that Symbiote Spider-Man lane, activate Symbiote Spider-Man, blah, 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 move your crap around. I mean, like there's some stuff there, right? Where it's like this guy genuinely does seem like he's gonna have a million different homes to the point that even me putting this topic of like beat symbiote Spider-Man, it's like which version? He's gonna be in a lot of places. He's gonna adapt to a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I don't know which one of those things is gonna survive. Like I'm interested to see him as a card that juices Sandman's power because Sandman is a deck that can struggle with combo decks, but if it has its own little combo in there, suddenly it's not struggling with combo decks anymore, right? Like, I
Yeah.
really wonder what this card is going to be able to do.
Honestly, me being me, I'm the kind of person that want to play this like rewind back to the starting topic. Like
Mm-hmm.
I will always want to play this in like a deck that gives me the option to not click the button. You know, like it's
Mm-hmm.
just my style because like I feel like when we're talking about combo decks, you kind of want to make it so that you must click the button with this card, right? Because that's the whole point of playing it in a combo deck. But I feel like the value of this card, like on a lower, less spectacular level, is also giving you the option to not click the button, which is really more of a shout out to the activate mechanic than
Yeah.
the card itself.
Is that not Sandman though? Like
Yeah, it is.
Sandman's
It is kind of
already
Sandman.
like Sandman is already in a position where it's like, okay, I don't really know what my 4-drop's supposed to be anymore.
Yeah.
And now you're getting this card that can maybe double your Doctor Doom or
Mm.
add its power to your Jeff or Nocturne to make it easier to move stuff around. And it's just like I feel like it just kind of has to go there, right? Like it's just gotta.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also kind of like flavorful that it adds its power to a move card because you know it's Spider-Man, it's kind of supposed to move. So
And beating bounce. I am gonna kick this one off with the card Sandman. like
yeah.
I think Sandman might be the good guy here. I have spent a while very afraid of the potential of move bounce. I already hate playing against it currently. Like it's just not a deck that creates fun play patterns for me where it's very much just like, "Oh, okay, you did your bounce thing. Now I have to guess what lane to Eliath you in." Like a lot of the things people complained about with bounce decks, this is the play pattern that I think bothers people because I know it's not just me, it does bother me too, where it's I'm going to throw priority and then because I threw priority, you can't interact with me meaningfully.
Hmm.
I have all these big stats. You can't Killmonger my Human Torch because it's in my hand. You can't do any of this stuff that interacts with me. You can't do it. Sorry. And there are solutions to that. Ghost, Invisible Woman. You can solve that problem, but I don't think the metagame would be healthy if that was the problem we had to solve. And
Yeah.
so I'm kind of hoping Sandman saves us from it, basically.
Honestly, my idea with this is a bit different. Okay, so firstly, you guys know by now that I love Sandman as well. I love isolating the game to one card on the final turn, but I also love bounce. And one thing I realized is that like this whole throwing of priority to not get like hit by the tech this is just like the thing bounce has been doing for a long time. I mean, even Sarah used to do it like for a bit just to like trigger their tech card. So like this whole throwing priority thing to me, right, has always been like about it's a setup. Like you have to set up for it. And I feel like if you do set up for it and it kind of just like works out, you kind of should be rewarded for it as well, right? Like they can't actually make you like die because you set up to not have priority. Of course, I guess the issue would be if it's too easy to drop the prio and hold like the 30 power monster in your hand. Like
Yeah.
if that is too easy to do, then that's a
I
problem. Like,
do think
but if
it'll
you
be
actually
really
have to
easy to
work for it,
do.
then it's fine.
Like, how would it not be
Right?
easy to do? You play your cards out, and then they make your Human Torch big, and then you move Madam Web, use Madam Web to make sure you're beasting everything back correctly, and then, like, it just seems like you can't mess up.
I mean, it's a combination of cog wheels, right? Like it's gears
Mhm.
that need to turn together. So the messing up is the fact that you don't draw them all the time. I mean,
Sure.
like I don't know if that's an enough of a percentage to think that it's not too easy to do, but we will see, we'll see. I'm excited because like I want to play this style of deck, but like if it becomes too easy to set up, like if everyone does it and like there's no real counterplay except for hoping they don't draw it, then it's kind of a bit too much, I would say.
I do feel like the one thing that makes me feel good about Move Bounce is that it really, really does want to be bouncing on 5, which makes it
Yes.
extra vulnerable to Sandman, where, say, a normal bounce deck that, like, plays Sasquatch or whatever is not that vulnerable to Sandman. Like, it still is vulnerable to Sandman, but, like, if you know they have a Sandman, you can be like, I can play around this. A move bounce deck can play around it, but needs some specific stuff to happen, like having Madam Web, putting a bunch of points
Hmm.
on the board. Like it's winnable and losable, but like I think the thing like that changes the cube dynamics, the snap dynamics of the deck a lot for me. And so
Hmm.
I think I'm about to become a Sandman truther. That's basically what I'm worried about. It's like I'm gonna
Welcome to the
be
club.
yeah, like day one, what I'm gonna be doing is like SSM Sandman probably. That's just where I'm gonna start.
Yeah.
Finally, I wanted to address a conversation that's been happening on Twitter recently, started by Marvel artist Jen Bartel, who talked about how artists were not being compensated in any meaningful way for their art appearing in games like Marvel Snap due to contracts they signed when they were contracted to make the art in the first place. The way she described it, I think a lot of people responded to it both positively and negatively. I just wanted to get on record here and say that I think that it sucks that the artists are not getting paid by Marvel Snap. I understand it is not Second Dinner's responsibility to pay them. I get that. I understand that they signed a contract for like licensing their work to Disney slash Marvel for presumably forever with no actual royalties in it. I get that. I just think that it sucks. I think there's this thing that's been happening online a lot that I refer to as like the normative descriptive shuffle, where someone will say, I think this thing sucks, and then someone else will talk about all the reasons why that thing happened in the first place. Like people talking about the legality of the contracts. Of course they're legal. That's not really at issue here. People talking about like, oh, well, just sign your contracts better next. Again, not the issue here. The issue is we have in Marvel Snap an environment that is a direct A/B test of the appeal of the art an artist is selling. A direct A/B test, because
Correct.
you have Hulkling and then you have Jen Bartel Hulkling. They are the same exact thing. The only difference is the art. That is the only difference. And so you can actually see that there is a desire for this art, that people are willing to spend money on this in the context of this game. It's a direct A/B test that is about the appeal of the art. It is clearly appealing, and she is making no money on it because when she signed this contract, Marvel Snap didn't exist. And there was no world in which she thought that her art was going to be licensed and then used to sell pieces of digital cardboard without paying her any residuals, because that was not a thing that would enter anyone's mind when she signed that contract 8-10 years ago, whenever it was. And I don't want to get involved in a debate over like legal, any this is why it happened, don't sign contracts like that, whatever. I don't want to get into a debate over that. I just want to say it sucks, and I would love if people from Second Dinner were willing to go above and beyond. I don't necessarily expect them to, because again, like when you look at the like real situation here, they're licensing it. They're already paying a bunch of money to license the Marvel IP. The Marvel IP comes with that because of the contracts that were signed with Marvel. They have no legal obligation to go above and beyond, but I do wish that they did regardless. And so I'm going to use my platform to say it would be really cool if they were able to give a percentage of profits to the artists, even if it was, I would say, a small one, because we literally do have so many people in this game that care about art and splits and making that art look cool, and the ways in which they interact with the game are art based. And I just think it sucks that we see someone with so high a profile talking like this, because I think it would be nice if this situation was avoided entirely. And generally, I want to say shout out to Jen Bartel, because everything I've seen her say has been incredibly based and cool. Thank you so much for bringing this up, because I honestly didn't know about it. And yeah, I think artists should get paid.
Yeah, I also actually honestly didn't know about it until what was mentioned like on Twitter and stuff like that. But like, so the interesting thing is when we were thinking of putting as the last topic, me and Cam were thinking about it. Like, I just literally asked him like, we kind of just want to say that it feels bad, right? Like we're
Yeah,
not
it
gonna
feels
talk
bad.
about like because like my perspective is also like I also think that like whatever was done was done. Like it's not, we're not trying to change any like thing from the past.
I,
It's just we want to
but
share our opinion that okay, I want to share my opinion that I feel like it just feels bad because like technically as streamers and content creators, we're also kind of like creatives, right? Like we always want to seek the best for our product, which is the stream, the YouTube, the content, you know. We always want to seek the best for ourselves as well. So I do get it. Imagine like imagine this 8 cubes video from now, like 8 years from now, this 8 cubes video is like some referenced like beloved
or
gold
like
mine video or something.
or like, you know, being used to train AI or whatever, right? Like that,
Yo.
it's like I have infinitely more in common with a creative working who is forced to sign a contract or choose not to make that money. I have way more in common with that. I like, as someone who gets offered a lot of sponsorships for games that I don't really play, I have way more in common with that. I understand. And I don't know, solidarity to Jen Bartel. I I really hope Second Dinner is able to go above and beyond for you, even though it was pointed out to me that that would almost be like doing tip culture for this, and like maybe that's not the way that it should. Like it's Marvel
Mm.
Disney's fault, right? But I think we've all just sort of accepted that, that's not going anywhere. So we might as well try to get second dinner to compensate. Like, I don't know. I really don't know how to feel about this, but what I do know is it sucks ass to have someone who has done such great work be screwed over like this. It sucks. And solidarity to Jen Bartel. Thank you for everything you've done to bring visibility to this, because I genuinely, like, it didn't. It's just crazy to me how underpaid they seem to be. The
Mm,
artists in this game generally. I can't speak for all of
agree.
them, but like the numbers I saw were just wild. And on that bombshell, it's time to end. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I have been KM Best. KM's soapbox was in full effect on that last one. Just a lot of my opinions, but that's what you can expect here when we're not talking about the best ways to win in Marvel Snap. I've been KM Best. He's been Lamby Series. He's gonna take us out.
Thank you guys for being here and listening to this super long episode. It was kind of fun to record as well, to be honest. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. We'll see you guys in the next one on my channel. Like, comment, subscribe, and bye-bye.
Dude, we synced up we did it at the
Yeah,
same
I know. I
time. That
saw.
was
I saw. I
awesome.
saw.
That was